I tried registering for a powerlifting this meet and quickly realized I was actually ineligible. Now, there was nothing huge in my way. There were just some prerequisites I needed to check off, some decisions I needed to make, and some equipment I needed to get before I could actually be eligible. So I will walk you through each one of those things today. If you're considering entering a powerlifting meet, hopefully this can help avoid the little last minute panic that I had when you go to register. Good morning, folks. What's going on? Today is week 16, day 4. It is leg day. As with our other heavy days this week, we're doing a little bit different. We are finding our 1 rep max. So today we'll be shooting to find our squat 1 rep max. Speaking of, the topic of the day is going to be powerlifting meet eligibility and requirements. Things you need to know before registering. Things, aka things I did not know. So one of those things we'll talk about equipment. So I have these knee sleeves, and so this is a piece of the equipment. This is not required, but there are certain requirements that these need to meet. These would actually be eligible, but as I was doing research, I found that there might be some better, quote, better knee sleeves for powerlifting competitions. So I'll talk about some of that stuff. And we'll talk about the actual rules for eligibility and wired equipment versus optional equipment and all that stuff. And we'll do that all while I attempt to find my 1 rep max for squat. Hopefully that goes okay. I'm not feeling 100% today. My kids were sick earlier in the week, and I think I'm starting to catch it. I've got a bit. Yesterday I started getting a scratchy throat. Woke up this morning, it was hurting quite a bit. It's still a little scratchy now, and I just don't feel like 100%. I don't feel like super sore and achy. If I had a lot of congestion or something like that, I'd probably reschedule this or just skip it. But I think I can move forward and at least get a good idea of what the 1 rep max is. I probably won't do a lot of workout after I get the 1 rep max. So I had planned to do leg curls and calf raises. I'll probably just do one of those. We'll see how we're feeling after. So I'm going to finish getting my shoes on. We'll get some warm-up weights set up. We'll start getting after the 1 rep max, and we'll talk about the things you need to know to be eligible to compete for a powerlifting meet. All right, just as with our other 1 rep max attempts, our warm-up is not going to be our typical 2 sets of 50% and 1 set of 75% of our working weights. We have an estimate, but it's kind of unknown. So we're ramping our way up. So we're going to start super light and get some movement going and warm up slowly, add weight as we go, and then work our way up to about 70 or 80% and start doing single heavies from there. Oh. And getting warmed up actually reminds me, I'm going to make one change to my normal squat routine. Normally I squat out here. I'm lifting weight that I'm comfortable with. If I fail, it's fine. I know that I can fall forward and roll the weight off my back, and it might hit the wall or whatever, causing damage. Since I'm going to be lifting heavier weight, there's a higher chance of failure. I'm actually going to go inside the power rack today. I normally don't do that because these weights actually get in the way. So it's just kind of annoying to have to move stuff around. I know. It's not a really great reason. Plus, then I normally just leave the safety pins at my bench press level. So I'll go ahead and move those up, and I'm going to do that for this next warm up. I'm going to press record and I'll fast forward. I just got this one on. Let's go ahead and move this one over. It might be kind of fun, interesting B-roll to look at. We'll see. Believe I have have some tape marks here from some Anderson squats. Just a little lower. All right, we got our power rack set up. I've got my rack pins put on the inside, and then the safety pins I have pulled up. I have a tape mark here from Anderson squats, but I had to go a few holes lower than that because, well, with Anderson squats, your point is that the pin takes over when you're at the bottom of your squat, and then you come back up. So I needed to go a couple pins lower, a couple holes lower than that. I'll take these rack things off. I took off the plates from up here, so there shouldn't be, as long as I don't go too far back, I still have these weight holders that if I go too far back here, should be just a little bit more safety than I normally have. I don't quite need it yet at 135, but we're ramping up. We will need it soon. So let's continue our ramp up. Here we go. Yeah, you can see if I go back at all, that bumps in, but right here in the middle of the cage is fine. And if I'm failing, it's just a matter of falling forward and letting that roll off my back. No problems there. All right, so before we dive into these prerequisites and eligibility requirements, I will say they can differ slightly from federation. So IP, what is it called? Let me find it. I'm going to cut this out if I remember. Jesus, I'll just stop. Before we start talking about all the different prerequisites and eligibility requirements, I want to say that they do differ. They can differ slightly, especially when it gets into the actual rules for the lifts from federation to federation. So the ones you might know are IPF, that's the International Powerlifting Federation. There's the USAPL, the USPA. The one that I am entering is the PLU, Powerlifting Union. What is it? Powerlifting. What's it called? Powerlifting United. And I just picked that one because I just Googled local meets and I wanted a specific time frame. I wanted something soon. And that they happened to have a local meet that was happening just in a month. So I picked that. And that's another thing. I wanted to do a local meet because higher level competitions like a statewide or national will a lot of times require you to have certain lifting requirements. You have to have lifted before and have a certain amount of weight before you can even do those higher level ones. And obviously the competition is going to be people who have been doing this. It's not really beginner, super beginner friendly, unless it says it is. They might have a novice division or something like that. But I just wanted to do one that was just local here. No national or championship or anything tied to it, beginner friendly. So let's hit this next weight and then we'll talk about the specific requirements that I needed to meet that I didn't when I went to go register. All right, we'll get one more warm up here. We're just doing 3 sets at 225 before I start putting on the belt and start doing heavier stuff. think I'll break down the eligibility requirements into two broad categories. And one is just general prerequisites before you even register, and others are more either weigh-in or day of the meet equipment and rules and regulations that apply there. So the first one, before you can even register, you have to be a member of the federation that is running the meet, right? That was a big one. I was like, oh, oops, that makes sense. I probably should have known that. And I will say, actually, I read that the PLU Federation used to allow you to register for their events if you were a member of a different federation, but it seems like recently, or somewhat recently, they changed that rule where you have to be a member of the Powerlifting United Federation. And membership was like, I don't know, $65 for a year or something like that. So you do have to fork out a little cash to join a meet, right? And that's going to be the membership dues and then the actual registration fee. And so I think the registration fee was $135. So I'm in already for $200 just to register for the meet and sign up as a member. And that registration is non-refundable, folks. So keep that in mind. Let's get this next weight and we'll talk about some of the other prerequisites for registering. All right, we've got 275 loaded on here now. We're going to do this for 2. For reference, my working weight the past few weeks has been 305 for 3 sets of 4 or 5. So we're approaching my working weight. So this should be 2 reps of this shouldn't be an issue. Another prerequisite is your age. Most of us, this isn't going to be an issue because it really applies to kids. So I think it depends state by state, but it's usually around 10 years. 10 years of age or so is the youngest that you can be. And of course, if you are a minor, if you're under 18, then you'll need a parent to be present with you through the whole process. But most of the people watching my channel, I think, are probably in the 20, 30, 40, maybe the 50 age group, so it shouldn't be an issue. That will play into the division that you sign up for, which you do have to declare at sign up. So that's part of the registration, is you need to declare your division. And there's 2 parts to that. Well, 3 parts, I guess, technically. For PLU, there is tested and untested for drugs. And then there is raw, meaning you're not using equipment. And then there's different types of equipped class. I think there's straps and then also fully equipped or whatever. I don't know the exact qualifications and rules for all those different divisions. Most of us are probably going to be doing raw, where maybe we're using wrist wraps and knee sleeves and a belt. That's our equipment. That's the most that we do. So tested, untested, raw versus equipped, and then your weight division. And weight division is going to be declared in kilos. So you do need to get a pounds to kilogram calculator if you don't know that off the top of your head. And you will need to declare your weight class at registration time, even though the weigh-in is not until the day before. So that was a point of tension for me because I'm in the not middle of a cut, but I'm 15 weeks into a 20-week cut, and I'm trying to lose a pound a week. So I'm crossing my fingers that I will be able to meet the weight that I declared. Now, if you are unable to meet the weight weigh-in, the short answer is you will probably get disqualified. At a local competition, it's up to the meet director. They may allow you to move up in the weight class if there is room. If it's fully booked and there's no room, they might still say no. They may choose to let you still do your lifts as an exhibitionist. So obviously it won't count or anything like that, but it's kind of like a stressful thing if your weight is either going to go up or down between that when you're registering and when the meet is, because you really want to make that weight. So I think I should be okay. I weighed in today 184 or something, and I need to get down to 181, and I still have 3 weeks. So I think between just my regular cut and fat loss plus some water manipulation, I think I should be able to do it. But so you have to know your division, which is tested or untested, raw or equipped, and know your weight class. We're getting into PR territory. This is 315, so I don't remember the last time I maxed out on squat, probably like college. So we're just guessing at what my 1 rep max is until we go through today. So 315 will be the heaviest I've lifted in probably, I don't know, certainly over 5 years, maybe closer to 10 years or more. That being said, doing 305 for 3 sets of 4 gives me high confidence that I can move this weight. And we've now moved into heavy singles. So this will be the first heavy single. I forgot a fourth part of your division. It's going to be age-based. So you'll either be in the juniors or in the open or in the junior masters or the masters. And that's just going to be dependent on your actual age at the time of the meet. So I think that's all the things you need to have at registration, right? You need to be a member and you need to declare your division, all of the 4 different parts we talked about, and you need money, right? You need the registration fee. And then your registration will need to match your government ID because you'll present that at weigh-in, which is a good segue to the next part. So the second part of eligibility is the weigh-in. And that is obviously where you step on to find your weight and make sure that you meet your declared weight class, but it's also an equipment check. And so this was the next thing that I didn't know I needed. So equipment, including clothing, requirements for powerlifting includes a singlet. So I didn't own a singlet. I'm not a wrestler. I haven't done powerlifting meets before. So that is something that you might need to purchase. And you can find them for, I don't know, $30, $40, $50, all the way up to $100, $150, $200. But you need to make sure that the singlet that you purchase is approved by the federation you're lifting in. Not all singlets are the same. Not all wrestling singlets are eligible. Not all powerlifting singlets that are advertised that way are eligible for every federation. So just keep that in mind. And then the other clothing requirement that kind of surprised me, caught me off guard, and I'm glad I was looking at the rules, was socks for deadlifting. They don't want you bleeding on the bar, so they require socks that cover your shins all the way completely, up to but not covering your kneecap. So that's pretty high socks. I wear crew socks normally, that's what I do, but those are not going to cover my shin completely. It won't be eligible. So the 2 required pieces, well, that's 2 of them. And the third one is a t-shirt. So you have to, for squat and bench, you have to wear a t-shirt. It has to just be like a plain t-shirt. There are certain, can't have big fancy logos or vulgarity and stuff like that. It has to cover your shoulder, but it can't go down to your elbow. So what you think about in a normal t-shirt. So that's required to wear under your singlet for squat and bench. T-shirt, singlet, deadlifting socks, and then you also need shoes. So you're not allowed to deadlift, at least at the PLU, you're not allowed to deadlift barefoot. So you do need to at least have shoes for that. And then you need to have shoes when you're squatting and benching. You can wear just regular cross-training shoes or whatever, but if you have specific weightlifting shoes, there are requirements about the heel height, right? So it can't be more than 5 centimeters or something like that. So just make sure that if you have shoes, just that they meet the requirements for that heel height. Typically, you'll see people use weightlifting shoes for squat and bench, just for that extra heel height. And then for deadlift, they'll use everything from skateboarding shoes to just regular cross-training shoes or barefoot shoes. But you'll have to bring all of this equipment with you at weigh-in time for inspection just to make sure it approves. So those were the required equipment, right? Your t-shirt, your singlet, your socks, your shoes. And then there are non-required optional equipment that you can add on. And we'll talk about that next because you may or may not want to use them. But if you do, you'll want to make sure that they meet the requirements. Well, I have to apologize to you because I lied on screen through my teeth. I only did 305, not 315 on the last one. I forgot to put the 5 pounds on the side. So sue me. That weight felt like it was moving pretty good. I'm not too upset about it. We do have 335 loaded on here now. So I'm guessing if I can get 335, 315 would have flown. How does my belt feel? I guess that's good enough. We need one more. How's one more? One more is fine. All right, 335, a new PR. This will probably feel heavier. You're like, no shit. Okay. Optional equipment you may want. A weightlifting belt. Highly recommend this. You probably already have one from your heavy workouts at home. If you have followed my example, it helps so much. Now, there are different types of belts, right? I have just a regular leather belt. There are synthetic ones. This one is using just like these, I forget what you call it, prongs. They have ones that clip, and there are also belts that Velcro, and Velcro is not eligible. So that's the first type of belt that's ineligible. The second thing that they will look at, or I don't know if it's the second thing, but is the width. So I believe 4 inches is the width that that most federations will enforce. I don't know what that is in centimeters or millimeters, sorry. And I believe there is a certain thickness. Now, when you go to buy a belt, it will likely say whether or not it has been approved by the IPF or USPA or whatever. So just bear that in mind before you buy a belt, that if you're going to buy a belt specifically for powerlifting, buy one that's eligible, right? So bring that to your weigh-in for checking. The other piece of equipment is knee sleeves. Now, I actually just bought some new knee sleeves because the ones that I have are pretty old, and I don't know, I like them a lot, but I just wanted something that's going to be a little bit better for competition. So I got these A7 Rigor Mortis knee sleeves. Now, these are some of the stiffest eligible knee sleeves out there. And I just found out that they were actually, these and a bunch of other stiff neoprene sleeves were banned recently, and then they were re-allowed because of the backlash. So they're actually eligible to the end of 2025. And then at that time, the federations will figure out if they're going to ban them again permanently, or if they will be allowed, or what. So, but for this year, they're still okay. These things are super, super thick. I mean, you can't really see it in the video. They don't bend as much as the ones that I have I just have a regular level 2 compression iron bowl, cone sleeves. These are the hourglass ones. They bend they taper in the middle to your knee. Now, I'm actually sending these back because I measured my knee, just like it said. They wanted you to measure your knee, your calf, and your lower quad. And so I measured that, and then I ordered the 2XLs, and I tried them on, and I could barely get them on, which that's what people say. They're hard to get on. But man, it was like digging into the back of my hamstring. It felt like if I was in danger of losing circulation and my feet going numb. And to me, that's a pretty good indication that they're too tight. So I remeasured once I got these in, and I think I maybe measured my quad too low. So I measured my quad a little bit higher up, and then that put me at the next size up. So those are on the way, the 3XLs. So I'll show you what those look like when they come in. But man, these are real stiff, and they are supposed to help. They're supposed to be knee wrap-esque and stiffness to help you recoil at the bottom of your squat. So we'll see if it helps. We're going to get my 1 rep max today with my regular knee sleeves, and then we'll come to the meet, and hopefully I'll have the updated size, and we'll see how it goes. So there are definitely some requirements that these have to meet. They can only be a certain length. They can't cover more than your leg. I forget what it is. They can only be a certain thickness, 7 millimeter, and they have to be single ply. So I think that is kind of these stiff A7 Rigor Mortis ones, and some of the other companies. I think the single ply has been called into question, and some other things. So yeah, so we talked about your belt, knee sleeves. Another optional one is wrist wraps for bench. I don't have wrist wraps. I don't use them. I do have wrist supports for deadlift, and these are not eligible. You cannot use these. So if you were planning on that, don't. That was one of the things that held me back from powerlifting for a long time, because I've been using those for a while and my deadlift was kind of predicated on that. My grip strength, I think, was maybe a little weaker because I was relying on those. So this whole past year, I've been focusing on just going without any wraps or straps on my wrists for deadlifting. And I switched from a double overhang, a double over grip to a reverse grip. And I think that has helped me a lot. I think my grip strength has improved. I think my technique has improved, and that grip has helped me to pull more weight. And with bench, I just find either I'm not lifting enough for it to be an issue, or I just have built up strength and durability in my wrists. So I think I just moved 300 this week, and my wrists were not a failure point for me. So I don't think I'll need to move into wrist wraps quite yet in my career. We'll see if I keep going forward with this. What else? We covered belt, knee sleeves, wrist wraps, underwear. Believe it or not, underwear is required, but your underwear cannot be like compression shorts. So keep that in mind. It's another clothing equipment requirement. We talked about the singlet earlier. There are certain singlets that have a lot of compression that would qualify as equipped, right? So you need to make sure that your singlet is, if you're doing raw, that it qualifies for raw and doesn't have too much compression. I think that's it as far as equipment, at least for the ones that I would use. So if I think of something else, I'll add it. If you are a blind spot, something that I missed, let me know in the comments. Next up, we've got 355. 350 was the suggested weight, but it was easier for me just to throw the 25s on. Now this would be a PR. I think what my app was suggesting is that 360 would be my top. So I'd really like to move this. If I can't make it, I'll do one more attempt, probably down at 350 or 345. If I can get this, I may do one more attempt at higher. We'll see. Or I may call it. All right, so we got 355. Question now is, how much weight do I add to that? That felt like it was moving decently. I could go up to 365, 370, 375. Let me think about it for a sec. All right, I think I'll try 375, but we've got a couple more minutes before we do that. So what else do you need at weigh-in? Obviously, you need to be at your weight. When you weigh in, you need to be nude or in underwear. And I think, or maybe even you could probably do your singlet. I can't remember. See, nude, that's what it is. And it can be dependent on your federation and whether you're your meet director, essentially. Now, I will say this. Look, we talked about this earlier. If you don't meet your weight, that's not good. You want to meet your weight, because you'll either be disqualified completely. Best case scenario, they won't let you round up, right? That's just not going to happen. Best case scenario, they let you move up a weight class and compete. Second best scenario, they allow you to lift your weight as an exhibitionist. Not official, but you can still do the meet. And then worst case scenario, they just disqualify you and say bye and keep your money, because the entry fee is not refundable. So that sucks if you don't meet. That's why you really want to have a good conservative bet. That's why I agonized over what weight division to go in. The reason I picked 82.5 kilograms is because I'm in a weight cut, and I know that is a weight I have been at before. I know it's attainable, and I know that that's actually the division I want to be at probably a year if I were doing this more frequently. I think that is a pretty lean weight for me without being too lean where I lose strength. So that's why I picked that, and I'm going to shoot for getting down to that weight. Still have 3 weeks to do it. You also need to know at weigh-in what your attempt weights are going to be. So you get 3 attempts for each lift, and you need to know what they are. Usually people will pick a very conservative first one, right? Because you want to make sure you get one in the bag. You'll pick medium second lift, one that's maybe at or close to a PR. And then your third one, assuming that you get your first two, would be like a PR. Maybe you add another 5-10 pounds or whatever, or something like that. Something that would be a personal best for you and would be really great if you got it. And so that's usually based off of past 1 rep maxes. That's why I'm spending this week getting my 1 rep max. Because when I found out I needed to know that beforehand, I figured, well, I need to find my 1 rep max. My estimates are probably going to be a little off. And as you found, on Monday, we looked at the different estimating formulas for 1 rep max. And for bench, one of the formulas out of 5 was accurate. The others were off by 5 or 10 or more pounds. Same thing with deadlift. My deadlift was way off. I think it estimated 360 and I pulled 390. So obviously my workouts were kind of not a great signal for what my true 1 rep max is. Today, my estimate is 360. I just did 355 and I've got I'm going to shoot for 375. So at 360 is probably a decent estimate, but so you want to know what your 1 rep max is, and ideally more than just an estimate so that you can get good temps, and you need to know those at weigh-in. You also need to know those weights in kilograms. So don't forget that. So I'm doing 375. I don't know what that is in kilos. Some of you know. I don't. But I have a calculator that will tell me, that will figure it out. So make sure you can do that. Let's see. We talked about the singlet, the t-shirt, the deadlift socks, the shoes, underwear. We talked about belt, knee sleeves. Knee wraps is only eligible if you're in the wraps division. Wrist wraps. Oh, chalk. You can use chalk. That's another optional thing that probably has to meet requirements. I don't know as much about that. I don't use chalk. I have to bring that plus your shoes to weigh in to get checked. You have to meet your weight and you have to declare your weights. All right, let's see if we can move 375. Now with deadlifts, it's really easy. There's only one command. You just pull and you have to get fully locked out and then you can go down. With bench, there's a few more commands. You have to unrack, go down, and then wait to be told to press and then rack. With squat, I think it's unrack. You've got to get into a stable position, knees locked, fully upright, and then you squat and go down. Now you need to make sure that you get down to parallel, where the rules are that your knee joint has to be above your hip joint. So that's the requirement, and you have to come back up. At no point can you start to go down. So if you're struggling and it start to fall a little bit, it won't count. It has to be solidly upward the entire time. You need to get fully upright and locked again, and then they will command you to re-rack. So I'm going to try and practice that as best as I can while trying to get this. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Maybe I could do more. I'm not feeling 100%, but that felt like a good place to stop. 375, it's a good PR for me today. 390 on deadlift, so they're close. And like I said, maybe I can do more at the meet, so that'll be a good indicator for what to try. Let's wrap up our conversation about requirements and meet eligibility and whatnot. Stick around because I will do the daily check-in where we talk about my weigh-in and nutrition from the day previous. I do that every workout, guys. I think it's really important. Nutrition is just as important, if not more important, when it comes to getting fit. That's something that I ignored. I just chose to not believe that for a long time. And as soon as I got serious about my nutrition, that's when I started being able to see my abs. I'll be frank. So we'll talk about that. And I'll probably do some leg curls. And before we do that, and as always, if this has been helpful or entertaining, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much. Stick around for the rest of the video. All right, folks, let's get some leg curls to finish out the day. We just did our 1 rep max on squat, which is decent for not feeling 100% today, 375. I think it's definitely highlighting the fact that my deadlift, as predicted, could use some work. 390 compared to a 375 squat means my deadlift should be much higher. It's cool to have goals, right? We're going to leave this 8 reps today, just a couple shy of what we normally do, just to help with recovery. So we've gone through all the different eligibility requirements for pre-registration, when you register, and then at weigh-in. And we didn't really go over any of the rules. I talked about some of the rules for the squat as I was doing that, but we didn't talk about the actual rules of the lifts and stuff. That's for another time. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you've been considering doing a powerlifting meet for a while and you just didn't know what to expect, what you needed to have to be eligible, I'd say it's not just one thing, right? It's a checklist. And so we went through that checklist, and it's not a very difficult checklist, right? But you do, if you're missing one of those things, then you're not going to be able to compete. So hopefully this is helpful for you. I know something like this would have been really helpful for me on Monday when I went to go register, and then I had to go and find it out all fast because there was only one spot left. That was the thing too. If you're looking to sign up last minute like me, and there's only one spot left, you better have all your ducks in a row. So like, some of the equipment and stuff like that, I had 3 or 4 weeks, so I could order that and wait for it to come. But I was just hoping and praying that by the time I went and registered with the federation and then got that number back for the registration form, that someone else hadn't signed up. And I got lucky. I was the last one to register for this meet. So hopefully this is a cautionary tale for you, and maybe not so much cautionary, maybe it's inspiring, maybe motivational. Maybe you will sign up for your first powerlifting meet. If so, let me know how it goes, and let's encourage each other. Let's cheer each other on as we try to get fit and strong and healthy and have fun. So we still have one more leg curl, and then we'll do our daily check-in. All right, last set of the day. Let's do our daily check-in. We weighed in today at 184, right on the nose, looks like, which is a little over a pound down from yesterday. I've been sticking to my calories. I had a decent amount of water, but I am feeling a little sick. So there's some congestion going on, some soreness of my throat. that could be contributing. Some of that could just be decreased water from illness, even though I'm not deathly sick or anything like that. It's likely probably multiple factors. It's probably a little bit of that. It's probably like I haven't had soup in a while. I haven't had high carbs or high sodium. I've been having a regular amount of water. I am sticking to my deficit, so I am losing fat along the way, but you didn't lose 1.3 pounds of fat. Hopefully it's just a better indication of what my weekly average is or could be, probably around 185. Last week, 186.6 was the average, so we do want to be in that 185 range this week. It'll be hard to get down to that with that 190 on Monday, but as I've mentioned before, that's looking at the static weekly averages. If we look at the moving smoothed average, if I go to macro factor here, you can see it's estimating my current weight at 186.9 and that I've lost 0.83 pounds from last week to this week. It's smoothing out. The 190 you can see on Monday is that light purple line that's way up there. And then today, Thursday, is that light purple down has come all the way down. But the actual dots are only moving slightly. And you can see they're starting to trend down this week. And if I continue at this weight, 185, 184-ish for the rest of the week, we'll start to see those dots come down closer to 185. And that's good. That's what I'm looking for. So yesterday, the nutrition was 1,702. We had 203 grams of protein, which is my good target. I shoot for 180 grams of protein. And if I can hit 200, great. That's a good protein day. The way we accomplished that was with a bronze David bar in the morning and my protein coffee for lunch. I think I had another bronze protein bar. I did have kind of late morning snack that I added to lunch here, and that's this Italian bread with butter and the hazelnut spread is Nutella. Such a good meal, guys. If you've never had Nutella on toasted bread with a layer of melted butter in between, it's a little slice of heaven. And that was only, almost 200 calories. But for me, it was worth it. A nice carb snack with some fat. Not to make up for that, but to round out lunch, I just had some fajita chicken strips with another David bar, a regular David bar, and some protein yogurt. And that's right there. That's 3 David bars I've had in the day. And that is I would not do more than that. If you don't know why, ask me. It's not pretty what they will do to your digestive system if you have too many of them. But moving on to dinner, some salad, another piece of bread with butter, some rotisserie chicken. The salad that I had came with croutons, so I entered those. And then I entered, like I said, I've been trying to be better at entering random miscellaneous little scraps that I pick up. So I ate my son's, he didn't eat his crust on his bread. I don't know. So I ate that. Some of you may say that's gross. I say, show me a dad who doesn't eat the leftovers of their kids. After dinner, we had these little mini Snickers left over. So I just had one of those and a yogurt cup. And that's it for the day. That's how I got to 200 grams of protein with only 1,700 calories. We've been trying, my target is 1,500 calories. And I've been making that my target knowing that I'll go over. So originally my target when I started this cut was 1,600, knowing I'll go over by 100, 200. So again, I'm wanting to eat 100 calories less, so I lowered my target knowing if I get 1,600, it's okay. If I get 1,700, it's okay. I'm trying not to get into that 1,800 or 1,900 because I'd really like my average to be 1,800 max if we can. And that's going to be really important for me to stick to that for the remainder of the cut so that I can make, not just so that my cut can be successful, but so that I can make weight for this competition at the end of the month, the beginning of the next month. Because as we just talked about in the video, if I don't make the weight, I don't compete. That's the most likely outcome. So I think it's doable. Like I said, if we're 185 this week, we still have 3 weeks. So even if I just lose 1 pound per week, that'll put me at 182. And I think I need to be at 181.5 or 181.9. And we also just talked about how water weight can fluctuate and you can gain or lose 5 pounds overnight. So I think if I can get down to 182, losing a pound of water weight overnight with a little bit of water manipulation should be doable. So as always, if this is helpful, subscribe. Stay tuned for the rest of the cut and the meat prep, and I'll see you next time.